RTV6, Indianapolis This Week.
Welcome to Indianapolis This Week. A new DCS director and an investigation into the agency after a scathing letter by the former director. Plus, the bill is filed for Sunday alcohol sales. And an Indiana lawmaker wants to get refunds for people who witness professional athletes taking a knee at sporting events. But first, we're digging further into tax reform and how it could impact you. We tracked down two U.S. congressmen on both sides of the debate, Republican Luke Messer and Democrat Andre Carson, to hear what this means for Hoosiers in the short and long term. Congressman Messer says working families will benefit from a $1,000 to $2,000 tax cut in the plan. He says this plan achieves the goals of Republicans to create bigger paychecks, more jobs, and a fairer and simpler tax system. I asked him about the impact of the deficit, pinned at more than $1 trillion in additions over the next decade by numerous estimates. You were on record back in the fall as saying that you couldn't support the Senate plan to provide disaster assistance for Hurricane Harvey victims because it piled on more deficit spending without any effort to balance the budget or pay down the debt. How can you now vote for the tax plan that at best estimates would add $1 trillion?
Well, again, I don't think those are the best estimates. I mean, listen, you've got the CBO that has estimated what you're putting forward. But I will tell you, the only time in modern history when we've actually paid down the debt is when we had a 4% growing economy in the 1990s. So we've got to get our economy on that kind of trajectory. That's why tax cuts are important. And I actually believe you will see more jobs, just like you did in the 1990s, therefore more taxpayers, and our best opportunity to pay down the debt with the passage of this tax bill.
How do you get to say, though, that when Democrats add to the deficit, it's bad, but Republicans can do so?
Well, listen, I think it's a matter of perspective. In the 8 years of the Obama administration, they literally doubled our nation's debt. The accumulated debt of our nation from the beginning of the Obama administration till the end doubled. Again, the other 200 plus years combined equaled the 8 years of the Obama years. So to suddenly now see Democrats criticizing our tax plan because they're worried it might add meaningful money, but a couple $100 billion to the deficit, to me, I think it's disingenuous. Listen, working families need tax relief. Until this tax plan started to pass, there was broad bipartisan consensus that our corporate tax rate was far too high and need to be cleaned up. And I think that's how most Hoosiers see it.
Congressman Andre Carson is calling the tax plan disastrous. He says the changes are great for corporations, but terrible for middle-class families. Carson says he would like to see tax breaks for renters and seniors. I asked him whether Hoosiers are entitled to get some of their tax money back in this plan. Democrats voted against the tax bill due in part to the impact on the deficit, but the national debt grew by an estimated 80% under President Obama. So how was that okay, but this is not?
Well, I think the problem with this is that we see the wealthy earners earning while the middle class has to pay for it. And the way that they're paying for it is by eliminating the Affordable Care Act, the mandate, the individual mandate. By scrapping that, you're going to have over 13 million Americans who no longer have health care coverage.
We've heard that this tax plan will add $1,000 back to the pockets of Hoosiers. Don't they have a right to their tax money?
Absolutely. I do. I want it. Everyone deserves it. The question becomes, there's no such thing as a free ride. That's one of the fundamental tenets of capitalism. Somebody's got to pay for it. How do we pay for it? By peeling away the Affordable Care Act, and ultimately, my Republican buddies are going to target Medicare and Medicaid. It's a disastrous road, and ultimately, they're going to go after Social Security. I'm concerned.
Some of the provisions for individuals will expire down the road, while that corporate tax cut is permanent.
It's permanent, yeah.
What do you see then happening down the road in discussions? What could that impact be?
Well, hopefully the Congress will change. And with that change, we could focus on making sure those middle-class families are protected. We want to make sure that they don't feel taken for granted or hoodwinked in 2026. We want to repeal those efforts to ensure that there's a cushion. Listen, those folks, my generation, your generation, by 2026, we're going to be older. Should we have to pay then just because of how much we earn while the upper income earners get a break?
Lawmakers return to the State House this week for the short legislative session. Senate Bill 1 already filed is the proposal to allow Sunday alcohol sales. It'd be for limited hours from noon to 8 p.m. And legislators are expected to clarify the law as it relates to CBD oil. As it stands right now, it's led to confusion for retailers and conflicting opinions within the State House over whether it's legal. And we could hear discussion on the way of the state's legislative and congressional district boundaries are drawn. That's a priority for Democrats, and 2 Republicans have filed a bill to create an independent redistricting commission. Senate Republican leadership will change this week after Senator Brant Hirschman retires on Tuesday. Senator Roderick Bray will take over as the new majority floor leader. Senator Travis Holdman will take on the role of chairman of the powerful Committee on Tax and Fiscal Policy. Hirschman is headed to work for Barnes and Thornburg in D.C. He recently announced his resignation from the Senate. Governor Holcomb has named a new director for the Department of Child Services, and he's calling for a full assessment of the state agency beginning this week. Terry Stigdon will take over leading DCS. She's currently the clinical director of operations at Riley Hospital for Children. She'll replace Judge Mary Beth Bonaventura, who stepped down after 4 years in the role. In a scathing resignation letter, Bonaventura alleged that children are being put at risk, and without serious changes to the current system, quote, lives will be lost and families will be ruined. The governor has hired an outside company to conduct a complete assessment of the agency. We're told that will include a look at how money is being used within DCS, caseloads, staffing, and program outcomes, as well as a comparison to other states. A state lawmaker wants sports fans to get a refund for their tickets if athletes kneel during the national anthem. Representative Milo Smith is filing the bill after he saw several players from the Colts and Browns kneel before their game in September. The players made the move to protest police brutality and in unity of what have been called divisive remarks from President Trump. Smith calls the action disrespectful to the American flag and military veterans. He says he and other fans can't let it go. His proposal would let fans at professional football games get a full face value ticket refund before the end of the first quarter. They would have to leave the game in order to get it. His bill would apply to all professional sports. To be eligible for the refund, a player from the home team would have to kneel during the national anthem. Smith says if the plan advances far enough, he would push to add high school and collegiate sporting events that require a fee for admission. Coming up next on Indianapolis this week, our insiders are in debating 3 big topics. Should you get a refund if a professional player kneels for the national anthem? Governor Holcomb announces an investigation into DCS, and also the important issues coming up in the legislative session. Stay with us.
In Plainfield.
Welcome back. Our political insiders are here with us. Conservative Abdul Hakim Shabazz, Democrat Jamar Cobb-Denard, and Eric Berman of WIBC. Kneeling during the national anthem. Should people get a refund if that happens?
There are a lot of reasons to get a refund from a Colts game, but kneeling at the national anthem is not one of them. Just look at their record. I mean, I think this is a bad idea. I understand lawmakers, they'll hear from their constituents. Those football players should kneel. We should be paying for it, but this is not the way to go. Vote with your dollars. If you don't go to the game, you don't have to ask for a refund.
You know, this could be unconstitutional. Private citizens have a right to free speech. Private employees are generally protected in political speech. And this could mean lawsuits for the state as well as for the Colts. Really, this bill should die with the paper that it was written on.
You know, Abdul beat me to it. I was thinking, can I get a refund if they blow a fourth quarter lead and have all kinds of money? This has a 0% chance of becoming law. It has, I would tend to doubt it'll get a hearing, although one never knows. But Representative Smith got his headline out of it, and that may be, well, as these folks suggested, the intent.
Eric, starting with you on this one, what is the biggest issue in the upcoming session?
The biggest issue in terms of attention and probably time spent on it is going to be the alcohol issue. You're going to have the Sunday sales, which is almost certainly going to pass. It's Senate Bill 1, which indicates that they put a priority on it. There's going to be a cold beer debate. That's been filed as well. That's a less certain outcome. That's going to get the most attention. most important issue of the session might be, what do we do about opioids? I mean, that's an issue that just has so many tentacles in so many aspects of life and the economy and communities. There's probably a dozen different bills that will be filed on that and different aspects of it. That may be the most important thing they do this session if they can get it figured out.
Well, in a non-budget year, too, so they may set the framework from what we understand and then kind of plan ahead.
Yeah, don't expect any money on this one, and for that matter, that screens out a lot of the things that would be big-ticket items last year or next year. You know, pre-K is going to be a big issue in 2019. We've had big tax initiatives in 2017. 2018, with money off the table, yeah, this is going to be more about what do we do in the criminal justice system, how do we direct resources within the mental health system, that kind of thing.
And I agree with Eric, as I keep my ear to the ground. One additional piece with the alcohol and drugs theme for the 2018 session is the CBD oil debate. The governor says it's okay. There's laws passed that say it's okay for medical use, but the AG says it's not. So how is this really going to shake out this session?
Like I said, my favorite issues: alcohol, tobacco, marijuana. I'm just going to have a field day when our lawmaker friends come back in January. No, but the other thing, too, to keep in mind is workforce development. How do we streamline, the various state agencies? Indy spends about $1 billion, on workforce, but we still have a skilled worker shortage. We still have the skills gap. So while Sunday alcohol sales, cold beer, CBD oil, sort of the light, flashy stuff, the thing like workforce development, that's going to be the broccoli and the Brussels sprouts.
DCS, we saw the scathing resignation letter in the last week or two. Who's to blame here, and is the governor taking a hit on this one?
Well, I think that the electorate and the system will sort out who's to blame for it. The governor may take a short-term hit, but he's not up for re-election for 3 years. He announced this week both the new director and that he's bringing in this outside group to review the agency. If that review comes up with a path forward, I don't think there's a political hit to be had, and if they straighten out the agency, so much the better. But I guarantee the legislature, and especially the Democratic minority in the legislature, they're going to be watching this very closely.
Yeah, Katie, I don't know who's to blame, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And if a sitting DCS chief resigns and writes an open letter like that and leaves a storied career in that industry, there's got to be some issues that need to be looked at. For the safety of our children and our families in the state of Indiana, I just hope that Governor Holcomb sticks to his word and does a full assessment and really starts to make some changes.
No, before we all start talking about the sky's falling and children are going to be dying in the streets, people need to also understand the backstory behind this. First of all, the state has given DCS over the past several years like $600 million additional dollars. The challenge for Judge Bonaventura, everyone I've spoken to says she was a very passionate advocate for children, but she was a horrible administrator. And the spending is where the back and forth took place. And the problem with the Holcomb folks is they did not let Judge Bonaventura say, hey, thank you for your service at the beginning of the session. They kept her on. And with all this tension back and forth, because there's some back and forth between her and the chief of staff, who, by the way, was extremely well qualified, worked for Dr. Jerome Adams, who's now the Surgeon General, of the United States of America. So, yes, you leave with the scathing letter, but there's, as the old Par Harvey line, there's a little bit more rest to the story there.
Do you think it comes down to the administration to make changes, or should state lawmakers get involved?
Well, eventually state lawmakers are going to have to get involved because it does come back to money. Whether money was being misspent or not, whether they had enough money or not, these are the kinds of things that they're going to be debating. What the director had said is, look, it's not a question of how much money we got. The question is that some of that money was getting pulled back again, being rescinded, and we weren't allowed to spend it. On top of that, we're back on opioids. You've seen a threefold increase in the number of kids coming through the system. They set caseload limits, the legislature did years ago, and we've blown past those caseload limits even with that extra infusion of money because opioids have brought so many more cases into the system that they need to keep up with. So they've got a lot to sort through just from a policy basis. The legislature is going to have to get involved eventually, but first they've got to figure out just where they are.
But also, real quick though, my friend, on that issue of money and resources, it behooves DCS, and this is part of the tension back and forth between Judge Bonaventura and Eric Miller, who was the chief of staff, as to where those resources go. What is the game plan? What is the strategic plan? Where are we spending money appropriately so we can take care of this increase in children who are on opioids? And that was a lot of the tension. So I agree with you, money wasn't the issue, but to say that Judge Bonaventura walks away scot-free and all the blame is on the Holcomb administration, I have to respectfully disagree with that assessment.
Jamar, last word.
The blame may cast where it is, but the fact of the matter is we've got families and children. We have an administration now and a new director. They need to put us on the right course.
Gentlemen, thank you. We'll continue the conversation online. Follow us there. And Happy New Year to you all. Absolutely. One county taking the fight against the opioid epidemic straight to the drug companies. Up next, the new step Madison County is taking in an effort to end this deadly problem.
Toyota, let's go places.
You can add Elwood to the long list of cities and counties suing major drug companies for their role in the opioid crisis in Indiana. As Indianapolis This Week's Stephanie Wade reports, this problem is especially trying in Madison County.
Lives are being ruined, families are being torn apart. There's article after article that talk about children who are born into opioid addiction and they've never taken opioids in their life.
The mayor of Elwood says it's a constant battle.
Drugs don't discriminate. It's older people, it's younger people. Race isn't an issue with that. It's everyone.
Resources are being drained.
We're seeing limited resources, of course. That's all over the country and, specifically here in Madison County.
Trying to deal with addiction in their community.
And the problem only continues to get worse.
Oh, always.
But where does addiction begin? The mayor blames the drug companies.
The prescription rate in Madison County is as high as 155 prescriptions for each 100 residents. According to the CDC, the national average is just about 82 prescriptions.
The false advertisements and the severe side effects of opioids need to be communicated better.
Elwood is joining cities like Indianapolis and filing a lawsuit, hoping to send a strong message to pharmaceutical companies that they need to be more responsible in advertising their drugs and their detrimental effects on families.
I think it is aiding to that problem.
What they hope to gain from the lawsuit?
Any monetary awards that the city of Elwood would see would go to strengthen these rehabilitation centers programs.
Centers like Bridges of Hope.
What's the end goal here?
Helping one addict at a time, the best that we can.
Stephanie Wade, RTV6.
The law firm Cohen & Millad has already filed lawsuits for Indianapolis, Marion County, Hammond, Lafayette, and Newcastle. Madison County will be filing its own lawsuit soon. The city of Muncie is firing back against a lawsuit from its former police chief. Steve Stewart filed a lawsuit against the city and the mayor in October, 1 year after he resigned from his role as chief. In the suit, he claims Mayor Tyler instructed him to conduct a criminal investigation of a former city employee who was cooperating with the FBI. He says that would have interfered with an ongoing FBI investigation into possible corruption. Stewart, shown in this video, claims Tyler created intolerable working conditions when he refused to do so, and that forced him to resign. In a statement last week, the city says the lawsuit is without merit and will seek to have it tossed out. The city adds a sexual harassment claim was filed against Stewart in October of 2016, and Stewart never submitted his version of what happened that day, despite being asked to do so. Stewart reportedly resigned less than 2 weeks after the incident. The city also says Stewart claimed he has rights under a contract between the Fraternal Order of Police and the city from 2016, but the city says no such contract exists. State officials are urging you to upgrade your driver's license and state ID cards to a credential that's been required since the September 11th terrorist attacks. Starting in 2020, anyone without the upgraded Real ID license or ID card will not be able to board commercial planes or enter certain federal buildings. You can upgrade yours at a local BMV branch. Members of an Indiana National Guard unit based in Kokomo will be deployed overseas. About 250 members will be recognized in a special ceremony on Tuesday at the Kokomo Events Center. From there, they'll head to Fort Hood in Texas for more training before heading to countries like Kuwait, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria to assist with operations. These pictures are from the last time they deployed to Kuwait back in 2013. Join our conversation. Check out Indy This Week on Twitter and like the RTV6 Facebook page. Up next, the 6 things you need to know for the week ahead. Lauren Casey is in.
Toyota, let's go places.
Wind chill advisories are posted for all of central Indiana. It's another frigid day for us across the area, and unfortunately, not much is going to change throughout the course of the day and into 2018. So obviously a big night this evening. Many of you may be heading out and about on the town to celebrate New Year's Eve. I'm just going to ignore the actual temperatures because really you just have to focus on the wind chill or what it's really going to feel like out there. And you notice as we head into this evening, 9:30, everybody is sub-zero for their wind chills. We'll stop this shortly after the new year begins at 1 a.m. and you notice the wind chill values anywhere from -8 to -14 degrees. And then as we start off the morning hours tomorrow, as you're waking up at 8:30, wind chill values as cold as -21 degrees in northern locations, and then things really don't get much better as we head into the course of Tuesday, as those wind chill values still -10 to -20 degrees. So we are in this bitter cold air for the long haul, so make sure you bundle up if you're going to be out and about.
Welcome back to Indianapolis This Week. I'm Lauren Casey. It's time for the 6, so let's take a look at 6 things coming up this week in Indy. Starting with an activity to kick off New Year's with the entire family. This afternoon, the Colts will play their final home game of the season at Lucas Oil Stadium. It's Fan Appreciation Day as well, so they'll be handing out scarves to all who attend. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m. And tonight, you can ring in the new year the Hoosier way with the drop of the Indy car here in downtown Indy. You and your family can attend this year's New Year's Eve party on Georgia Street. It's free while space lasts. You can also catch the fireworks show in downtown at the stroke of midnight. And if you want to start off 2018 with some laughter, head on over to the Old National Center. Former Colts punter, now comedian, Pat McAfee is holding his comedy show tonight. The fun all starts at 8:30. And it's Hoosier Hoop Hysteria all day long. The second annual basketball day is back in Indy this Saturday with matchups from the youth to the NBA. Stop by Bankers Life Fieldhouse on Saturday to get in on all the action. And if you can, stick around later that day at Bankers Life Fieldhouse because you can cheer on the Pacers against the Chicago Bulls. Tip time for that game is set for 7 p.m. And this is your final week to take a spin around Monument Circle. Enjoy the circle of lights here before they come down on January 7th. The lights this year are new and LED, so even though we are post-Christmas, there's still plenty of time to check this out. That's what's on tap this week in Indy. Back to you.
Thanks, Lauren, and thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. We'll have a full recap of the first week of session coming up next Sunday, same time, same place. We hope you'll join us and have a happy new year in the meantime.